Confirmation. Coming together. Annika gets home and packs her bags. I can't believe her, she says to herself. Tegan just can't see anything outside of Ann Arbor, she adds. Annika puts a new aqua suit in her suitcase and she looks down at it. Could Tegan be jealous of me? Why? Annika says, narrowing her eyes. She suddenly closes her suitcase and grabs the rest of her bags and walks out of the door of her house. Lance quickly swings past the building. He goes into a spin before swinging around a corner and lands on top of a building before he gets a text message. He pulls out his phone and looks at his message. On my way to New York, he reads, from Annika. Lance smiles to himself. He's happy that he's going to get to see Annika again. Lance jumps off the roof and the web sabers shoot out. Minutes later, Lance lands on the ground and pulls the hood over his suit. He stands up, seeing Connor sitting near the truck. Hey, Metal Spider, you gotta see this, the Northeast soldier says, signaling for Lance to walk over. Lance walks over and stands beside Connor as they look up at the Roxxon barrels. Roxxon makes oil, Connor. I think you might have just intercepted a shipment of barrels, Lance says. Connor nods but then realizes something. No. Roxxon, from what I know, doesn't have any warehouses in New York, Connor says as he thinks hard about what Lance said. I wanted to know, could the bombers somehow have gotten their hands on some oil and used it as a chemical substitute? Connor asks. Maybe, but the chemical sample I found in the rubble was from the Rand Corporation, Lance replies. The two stare blankly at each other. Chief Jackson sits down at the table with a cup of coffee. He has to leave soon. All the survivors from the Detroit police station were spread out around the city on his orders, and he sits and wonders how he's going to find the guy who blew up the station. He sighs before taking a sip from his cup and getting up. He grabs his blue NYPD windbreaker before getting his keys. Honey, I'm heading out. I love you, Glenn says as he slams his door shut. He walks outside to his car and pulls out his phone. Hey, Lance, I need to meet you at the station in Gramercy, preferably today, Glenn says as he types a message to Lance. Annika yawns as she walks toward Bradley Maxwell's plane. She smiles at the fact that she's finally leaving Ann Arbor, even if it's only for a week or so. She gets on the plane and sits down on the seat, putting her bags down and looking out of the window. Here I come, New York, she says to herself. She sits there for a minute and contemplates about Tegan. She's always been jealous of me. Why? Annika says, narrowing her eyes and shaking her head. None of it makes sense to her. Hero walks down the street, looking to see what changed in his 9-year absence from New York. He smiles and walks past the Sanctum Sanctorum. He stops and admires the building. This is cool, Hero says while smiling. Suddenly, an orange portal opens up to his left and he quickly turns his head at the portal. A man walks out of it and glares at Hero before asking him who he is. I'm Hero, Kasai. Who are you? Hero says cautiously. I'm Wong, Sorcerer Supreme, Wong says proudly. Hero looks at him confused for a second before widening his eyes. Oh, I've heard about you, Hero says, nodding his head. Wong smiles before walking into the sanctum. Hero watches Wong walk in and realizes what he just witnessed. Is anyone going to say anything about that? Hero says to himself as he walks away. Lance checks his phone after feeling it vibrate. Who is it? Connor asks curiously. Lance tells Connor that it's Chief Jackson before reading the message to himself. Chief wants to meet us either today or tomorrow. I'm guessing to meet the team and talk about leads, Lance says. Connor sighs and looks over at the barrels. Well, what are we going to do with these? Stolen property, so tonight we can shut the truck up and leave, he asks. I have an idea, Lance replies. Hey, Officer Denver. We have a truck of stolen Roxxon oil barrels. We need a unit out here ASAP. Thank you, Lance says before hanging up. Connor looks at him before retracting his visor. So, we're going to meet Chief Jackson then, Connor says rhetorically as Lance looks at him and nods. Landing. Annika finally lands at a small landing strip in upstate New York. She walks out of the plane carrying her bags and thinks about how good it is to be in New York. This city, its energy is so different from Ann Arbor's, Annika thinks to herself. Annika rents a car and gets in the driver's seat. She suddenly gets a text from Lance. An address, she says to herself as she reads the text. Annika puts the address into her GPS and begins to drive. Her mind drifts as she drives down the freeway. Tegan is literally the worst friend ever, she thinks to herself, before suddenly seeing smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire, Annika says out loud as she merges into the exiting lane. Annika drives up to the fire and gets out. She sees multiple firefighters spraying the building with water while a few others head into the burning structure. She glares before closing her eyes and summoning a wave of water at the building. Her arms are outstretched in front of her as she fires a blast of water through the windows of the building. The firemen stare at her in confusion and awe. "What is she doing?" one of them asks aggressively. "Looks like she's doing the job for us. Way better, too," one of the firefighters says as he stops using the hose and squints at the water make contact with the flames. Annika continues to blast the fire with water until the flame dies away. Annika lets out a huge exhale and slowly opens her eyes, remembering how just a year ago she needed water to be able to use her powers, but can now simply shoot it out of her hands. Suddenly, the firefighters begin to walk up to her. Annika glances over and sees the men walk up to her. "Hey, I want to say we appreciate you helping with that fire," the fireman says. Annika puts her hands on her hips and smiles before accepting the gratefulness and saying you're welcome. Annika hits the road again, feeling good about how she helped the firemen. She thinks of being a hero and how her powers have helped her grow as a person. She sometimes feels trapped in her own mind and annoyed at how she lets her own thoughts get away from her. She shakes her head as if to knock the thoughts out of her head. Lance and Connor meet up with Hiro at Lance's apartment, and Hiro smiles when he sees Connor. "Ah, I remember you, the helper," Hiro says, remembering how Connor helped him take down Powder Drum. Connor nods to himself and chuckles, before asking Hiro how he's been. Hiro says he's been alright, and asks about him. "Things have been awesome. I'm actually an Avengers candidate now," Connor says in a joking tone. The three joke around and Lance gets the text from Annika. "I'm close," he reads. "Annika's almost here. You guys ready?" Lance says, looking at Connor and Hiro. They smile and nod.